Welcome to this episode of the GymInformer podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, your host for this episode. And today our host is Daniel Forguson, the owner of Southside Iron in Columbia, Illinois. This is a cool it's a cool bodybuilding gym. It's not overly huge, but Daniel's got some really cool equipment that I'm super excited to talk to him about this collection and the atmosphere and everything that's cool in this gym. So before we get started, let me show you the photos I took so that you'll understand what we're talking about. All right, Daniel, you were actually a competitive bodybuilder for quite a while, right?
Yeah, back in 2011, did a show in the NPC, the Iowa Battle of Champions, actually. And that was the year right before the NPC had the classic division. So did a show in the NPC and the classic men's physique division, and was really eager to compete in the classic division. It just wasn't in the NPC yet. So I actually went over to Paul Dillette's WBFF and competed in their nationals, earned my pro card in their division. That's sort of comparable to what is today classic physique in the NPC.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it was interesting. We actually saw a photo of you from a competition in another gym that we visited while we were in the St. Louis area. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
kind of cool.
that'll fit into this story. That gym was sort of my home gym for 15 years. And
Hmm.
since you got to tour both, I guess you could probably see how my gym's, sort of a reflection of that gym. But American Family Fitness and Pontoon, good people, great gym.
Yeah, definitely. So after being a competitor for a little bit, what made you decide now's the time to open a gym?
So we moved to Columbia, Illinois. It's just on the east side of St. Louis, small town, about, roughly 10,000 people population wise. And I was searching around for a gym that was nearby that was sort of had the vibe that I wanted. And, they have the local Y, which is great, super clean, friendly atmosphere, but I just couldn't really find anything around here that was, my type of gym. So once we moved here, I started building my own gym and ultimately found an industrial space just for my wife and I to train an environment with the type of equipment that we like. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And eventually, I guess that's the story for all gyms, right? But eventually, and the space that you visited, that back bay was my personal gym for like 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And the neighboring tenants moved out, and the landlord approached me about like a full build out and opening it up to the public. So we figured, what the heck? We already had a great start and filled in some more equipment and expanded to the front area. But the back bay was just our personal gym for a couple years.
Okay, and how long have you had both? How long have you had the full gym open?
We opened to the public in November, right around Thanksgiving. So we're pretty new.
So not even a year yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's awesome. You've got a really nice. It's not a huge gym, but it's a nice little gym for, especially for being open no longer than you have been. Um, One of the things that impressed us when we were there was some of the unique pieces of equipment that you had. It was a lot of old school pieces, a lot of really cool pieces. How do you decide, like, because you don't have a ton of space? Like, how big is the gym?
Yeah, it's about 4,000 square feet on the inside, and you got to see some of the outside additions, but about a 4,000 square foot
Yeah, so in
space.
4,000 square feet, you have to be selective. Like, it's enough space to really put in some cool pieces, but you have to be selective. So how do you decide, like, this is a piece that warrants going in this 4,000 square feet?
Yeah, so I am 100% old school flex magnum, all those great old pieces, and they're rare and hard to find. So um, I some of it you have to just get as it's available. You can't hold out and say, well, I'm not going to add a XYZ piece until, or I want it right now to fill out the space. You have to build it as you can accumulate it.
Mhm.
But I was mindful of the limitations of the space from the get-go. And so I already had a good idea of, for the different body parts, the specific pieces that I was looking for, and I could kind of fill them in as I was able to come across them. And there's some great people on Instagram that can, this gym equipment community that everyone sort of helps each other out and keeps an eye out for
Mhm.
specific pieces that you're looking for. But no, to your point, I mean, I couldn't have 3 overhead shoulder pieces, 2 pin loaded, 2 plate loaded, and just, so that really eliminated the ability to buy a line if a line became available, which not necessarily what I wanted anyway. But I couldn't just pick up 5 pieces at a time because it was a good deal, and I already had a pretty good understanding of what I wanted. It was just a matter of, some of these pieces took almost 10 years to find, so it's just a matter of
Okay.
kind of piecing them together.
Yeah. So I think we kind of even went into my next question already, was talking about the equipment. You've got some super cool pieces, like you were just talking about, old school Magnum, old school Flex. Is what is really like, what is your like favorite pieces in the gym, since we've kind of already gotten into it?
Yeah, and some of it is kind of how weightlifting played out for me. I had the bodybuilding background, and then a couple years ago, I was over at Show Me Weights, great equipment facility, equipment provider in St. Louis, wandering around, and I was looking at the bars, and I asked the owner, who's now a good friend of mine, Jeff Marvel. I said, what's up with these deadlift bars? Why are they different? And was sort of asking a little bit about the powerlifting world. And he said, you know what? I'll explain it to you, but I'll show it to you. Why don't you, this Sunday, you meet me at Tank's training facility. Chris Janik's the owner, he's a top 10 all-time world record holder. We're fortunate to have him locally. He said, meet me over at Tank's and I'll show you about this deadlift bar. And little did I know that turned into about a 2-year plus adventure into powerlifting. And
Wow.
just, I was immediately fascinated with the level of skill that's required and technique on the powerlifting side. And so what you'll see in Southside is that it's a blend of, all the old school bodybuilding pieces that I love, but some of the powerlifting stuff that I most, recently got interested in. So there's not too many 4,000 square foot gyms that have a monolift, for example. So that's sort
Oh
of
yeah. Yeah, we
the
thought that
story.
was that unique.
Yeah, so that was sort of the story behind the selection. It's a good blend, and we can talk a little bit about the makeup of the members. But we've got powerlifters, we've got bodybuilders, we've got day-to-day just lifestyle lifters who wanted a higher level of equipment than you might find at the Y or some local big box gym.
Mm-hmm. And it's an industrial sort of space, so that definitely lends to kind of that hardcore vibe. And you've got the concrete floors, so I'm assuming that hardcore vibe is what you were going for from an atmosphere standpoint.
Yeah, and the name is interesting. There was maybe 10 years ago, I almost opened up a gym about 30 miles east of here, and I had a great space, and I was going to call it Eastside Iron because it's on the east side of St. Louis. And I wanted the name Iron. I wanted the word iron in the name just to, as soon as you see the name of the gym that it's going to be a little bit more catered towards serious lifters.
Right.
That didn't work out. Ended up moving to Columbia, which is on the south side of St. Louis, called it Southside Iron, but have had this concept in my mind of, what would be a gym that I would like to train at that I could maybe build one day. And so that's where the name Southside Iron came from. It's on the south side of St. Louis. And I've always wanted the word iron in the name, just so that people who are looking for a new gym, whenever you see the name, you know a little bit about what it's going to be about already.
Oh yeah, I've been thrown off a couple of times, but usually if it's got iron in the name, it's a pretty cool bodybuilding gym, and if it's got barbell in the name, it's a pretty cool powerlifting gym. Now I've been to a couple bodybuilding gyms that were called barbell, and I've been to a couple powerlifting gyms that were called iron. but for the most part, it stands pretty true. So
Yeah, and interestingly enough, later, whenever I learned about Westside Barbell, I thought, oh wow, I'm kind of like, and then in that whole documentary, there's this gym called Big Iron that was one of their competitors, and so now I've got this gym, Southside Iron, and had come up with that way before I knew the first thing about powerlifting. But I found later on that a little bit of flavor from some of those types of gyms, that you got some hardcore powerlifters in there, you've got some hardcore bodybuilders in there, but we've created this community where you might have a power lifter spotting a bodybuilder just because they're going heavy that day, and then you might have someone who's just in off the street who wants to learn a little bit about it. And while it may be a little bit more of a hardcore environment, there's no meatheads in there that are going to just put off the day-to-day lifter who wants to learn more and be better. Most of the people who are at our gym have already achieved a higher level. They've grown past that, and now we've got national level athletes, national competitor level athletes, and some pros in both worlds. So you're talking about the elite as far as the local lifting community goes, who, I mean, they can break down the nuts and bolts of either side to people who want to learn.
it's funny you mentioned that whole meathead kind of thing. And having been to probably over 250 locally owned gyms now, I haven't come across that very often. I feel like that locally owned gyms definitely have a culture that comes from ownership, like, because when the owners care, the members care, and no one tolerates that sort of thing. So people who want to be assholes in the gym don't exist in locally owned gyms for the most part.
Yeah, it's a combination, in my opinion, of the owners and the members. It's not my gym, it's our gym. And the members who train at Southside, they take care of it like it's their own, and that extends on to seeing people disrespecting other people, seeing people disrespecting equipment. We've got the type of members that they're gonna say something about it if they see that going on.
And that comes from you. I mean, I'm sure you set the standard for that and you created that culture. So good for you on that. And I'm sure if we had been there on a different day when there were more members there, I mean, we talked to a couple people who were there and they all knew who you were and they all like spoke very highly of you. And that always says something to me about the gym. If I go into a gym and I say, like, what do you guys think about Daniel? And they're like, who the hell's Daniel? Then it's probably a pretty shitty gym. Um, you know, but if everybody knows who the owner is, then it's probably a pretty good gym. So
yeah, I'm in there training myself 6 days a week, which also plays into the reason some of the pieces are there is because I've used them for years. They're the pieces that I know work. They, perfect angle, well built. And so, yeah, most of them actually probably know me more because I'm in there training with them than because I'm the owner.
Yeah, no, and that helps them buy into that culture also because, like, okay, if the owner's in here training with us, he cares about the gym, he cares about our success, he cares about his success. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it definitely starts building that culture that you want. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, from an organization standpoint, I don't often talk about organization in a podcast. It is something that we talk about in our reviews, but I thought your organization was interesting, and I was wondering if you did it that way on purpose, or if it was because of the space and you had to fit things in the way that you had to fit them in. Because we kind of thought, sorry to mean to like jump in there again so quickly. We kind of thought that it would be cool if you had like an upper body side and a leg side, since you've kind of automatically got two sides. But at the same time, we started looking at the way the pieces were arranged, and we're like, I don't know if it would fit that way or not.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but generally speaking, I wanted the flow as you sort of walk into the gym. It kind of gets a little bit more serious the deeper you get, and the most serious, is the powerlifting stuff in the back of the back bay. And so there's the deadlift, the monolift, the competition bench, the reverse hyper, the belt squat. All that stuff is in the back of the back because that's sort of more caters to the power lifters. And then as you kind of reverse out of that, Then there are more, plate loaded pieces. Then you move into the selectorized pieces. But like small bay versus the big bay, the I actually wanted a little bit of a mix of like, I don't want every single leg piece right next to each other, because some of those pieces that require a lot of plates or a lot of movement, I wanted people to be able to have a different feel in each bay, and you could come and have a leg day in one bay, or you could have a leg day in the other bay, and you could kind of change it up. Whereas if you've got, I always do legs on Monday, I'm always in the small bay, you kind of isolated into that area. So I just kind of like the idea of being able to have a back day in either bay, you know what I mean? And then
Mhm.
also achieve the goal of the power lifters having their own sort of space in the back. Again, there's big weight moving back there, so you don't want people having to walk through an aisle behind someone spotting someone out of the monolift. So I kind of wanted a dedicated space for that.
No, that totally makes sense, and I understand like your thought process on organization a little bit better now. So right now, as you said, you're at 4,000 square feet. You've been open for just under a year to the public. Have you already thought about what's next?
Yeah, so we just now opened up an outdoor area called the Yard. We got some big fans put up yesterday. We're going to get a canopy set up. A little bit of a play on Venice Beach, but it's a farming community, so it's more like instead of Muscle Beach, it's more like Farm Beach. But some great views. I mean, you're looking out onto farm fields and gorgeous sunsets in two of the directions. And so, we've got a lot of hammer stuff going out there. Some of the hammer, like the high row and the incline chest, the hammer pieces that everyone loves, that take up a little bit more space than we really had room for on the inside. And in order of priority, I was going over old school stuff over the hammer stuff on the inside. But now
Mhm.
we've got some really resilient, really good hammer pieces outside. So that's next. And like we're in the dog days of summer now, but once the fans are going, you get a couple pieces. I just had a back day yesterday, went and hit the hammer high row in the middle of my workout, came back inside of the AC. So it's not like you're dedicating a full workout most of the time to being outside, but it's
Right.
going to be absolutely amazing in the fall to be able to have more room for more functional training. That's something we don't have a ton of inside, is just sort of the open area for lunges, for example, or any of the more functional movements.
Hmm.
So that's happening right now, and I'm going to continue to fill in some more pieces there. And then more outdoor. I've got a long outdoor flat stretch behind the building. And for like the strong men, if you think about the farmers carries or even some of the stones or the tires, I've got a great area out back that we might do that next, just to help, the power. There's not much that strongmen can really do there now for what they need. And
Right.
then there's a huge stretch of grass along the side. And we also could cater a little bit better to some of like the school athletes that, they might want to do sleds, or, get some better use out of we've got a huge stretch of open grass on the side. So those are near term. And then, additions to the building, the neighboring tenant who you met, Andy, he's also the landlord and he owns the
Right.
business next door. Their business is growing too. So there could be opportunities to expand on the inside in that direction, and, more cardio, more open space for the dumbbells. That's something that we could use, a little bit more space around the dumbbells. And that could be in our future too.
Okay, cool. How much is that space? Do you know?
Roughly equivalent. So we could maybe, almost double our size.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, 8,000's a whole different world.
Yep.
Very cool. So you're gonna have in the outside space. Do you have turf? Are you gonna have turf? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, we were talking about that. We could do a lot in the grass already, but it's super flat and perfect. It'd be a perfect area for turf. So we did talk about that. And then, you have some of the larger gyms that have the big stretch of turf down the middle and all the different things that you can do on the turf. We could take that outside, but it's so much bigger than just, a stretch of turf that you would see in a gym, that we could actually have a football camp out there and do a combined indoor strength training, outdoor functional camp, if you will. So that's something that
Mhm.
we've been kicking around.
Very cool. Awesome. So we talked a lot about what you're doing well. And I think you guys are doing well, especially for being open in less than a year. What are some things, or what is something you feel like you wish you were doing better?
Well, we want to make sure that we control, the perspective and the opinion from the outside of the gym. We don't want to be perceived as a bodybuilding only gym, or intimidating to people who, maybe they're just now getting into weightlifting, or maybe they're young and they're kids that want to get into it. We don't. We want to make sure, and we could do better at helping the community understand that this is a home for. It probably is an even better home for people who want to get in and learn than, for example, going and trying to learn at the Y, because there are so many more resources, um, and specific types of equipment that you could, in my opinion, learn better from at a gym
Mhm.
like ours.
100%.
So, because there's been so many competitive athletes that have flocked, I would say, once they saw the type of equipment that we had, we just have to really be mindful of making sure that we're not, eliminating anyone from feeling like they would be a good fit.
Yeah, no, that makes tons of sense. Um, so one of the things that was a really good answer. So one of the things that we always ask at the end of a podcast, is I'm sure in the last year, or last 9 months of opening the gym, you've probably already learned a ton. So is there any advice that you would give to somebody who's thinking about owning a gym or wants to open a gym?
Yeah, I would say, and I think we're fortunate in St. Louis. You got to meet Joe at House of Pain. I mentioned my friend Jeff. He owns Show Me Weights, but he also owns the Fit Cities. I've got a great personal relationship with the Schaefers because of training at Family Fitness. So, as much as you might feel like, another gym owner might not want to talk to you because you may be perceived to be their competition, give them a shot, because you might be surprised that almost all of them, in my opinion, of the good ones, they're going to actually help you grow, because we as a community, um, a rising tide raises all ships, if you will. We can continue to grow as a community of, like, sort of the non-commercial big box gyms, and pick up the phone, stop by their gym, ask them questions, tell them what you're up to. Don't guard it and try to figure it out on your own, because there are a lot of people right around you who have already figured out the answers, and they also have a lot of connections. So, I mean, I could give 20 examples of all these gym owners who I've mentioned opening their doors to me and helping me get started. I mean, Joe went out of his way to get my dumbbells in. He connected me with a couple suppliers that he knows. Jeff helped me with space planning and thinking about the types of equipment that was going in. Family Fitness, they always keep me in mind whenever they're going to swap a piece out or bring a new piece in. So, just glean from the knowledge of the other gym owners around you, especially the ones who have good reputations, and don't feel like, you can't talk to them because they may think that you're their competition. I think you'd be surprised.
And that's something I've been trying to like talk to gym owners about on a regular basis. And I feel like since the St. Louis area got it pretty well, and that most of the gym owners we spoke to there seem to get that in order for all of you guys to be successful, the rest of you need to be successful. And that every time somebody comes to one of your gyms, it's a win for all of you, because that means they're not going to a commercial gym. So if all of you help each other out and you are all successful, that only hurts the commercial gyms. It's not hurting you guys.
Yeah, at the end of the day, people are only going to drive so far for their daily gym. So, if you're right across the street in a small town, maybe that's a little bit of a different story. I think you might still be surprised. But if you've got a gym that's 30, 40 minutes away, I mean, you're the likelihood that you're really competing for the exact same members is probably not what you think it would be.
Hmm.
So, no, I think just reach out, make the connection, ask the questions, even if you feel like they're dumb questions. And also, as a gym owner, whenever you're going to look at the math, how many members could I expect for my square footage? What's my break even point? What should my price point be? The math is totally different for a gym like Southside or like House of Pain than it is for a big box gym, because they bank on such a high percentage of their members not even showing up that their anticipated membership per square foot is just not even comparable to what you need to plan for. And Southside's a good example, only 4,000 square feet. We have to be mindful of overcrowding. And so whenever we're going to set our price points, what do we think that's going to do with, number of members, and is that going to lead to overcrowding? I can tell you right now, if we go out and set our price point at $30 because we want to compete with, these are good gyms, so I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying, like a Club Fitness locally, well, we're going to get flooded overnight. And now the people who will respect and appreciate the equipment that you have in there are going to get flooded out by people who are just looking for, a cheap local gym. So doing the math, that's something that these gym owners have already had to figure out time and time again. As they grow, they react to their local market. Don't waste time playing the guessing game, because, if you're going to launch a gym, you also need to have an understand, what does this stuff cost? Am I going to try to be able to do this debt free, and how many members is it going to take, and how many months is it going to take to get to break even? I mean, these guys will break down the numbers for you. They may be lifters, but they're good business people. So, they can help you with that side.
Oh, and that's one of the other things I've been trying to preach about is, like, if you're trying to compete against like big box fitness centers on price, you're going to get a bunch of members in your gym that aren't going to respect your gym because they're only there for the price. If you raise your price up above where those big box gyms are, yes, you may lose some potential members, or you may lose some members, but the people who are left are going to be more respectful. Everyone's going to be happier, and you're not going to lose members because your culture goes in the tank.
Yeah, and they're likely going to understand why your price point is where it needs to be, because, your leg press probably costs 3 times that of the other gym. I mean, your investment is vastly different per square footage than the big box gym. So, we have to make a profit, right, in order to stay in business. So, I think that the gym members who ultimately pick that option understand that, they don't see me pulling up in a Maserati. So it isn't, nor do we have the square footage for that to be even a reality. But even Joe,
Right.
it isn't a profit center for Joe to just absolutely maximize every penny he can get, or else he'd have had very bland equipment, maximize head count or member count, and it'd have been a different game. Joe's built his business because he is passionate about, strength sports. He's passionate about fitness. He wants to create an awesome atmosphere. And that just requires a different price point than, the low cost option.
Oh, 100%. So I didn't have any other questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell people about Southside Iron?
No, well, I would say, and a little bit of the St. Louis dynamics, Missouri, Illinois. Sometimes Illinois seems like a different country to people who live in Missouri. We're 9 minutes away from the JB Bridge. We're 15 minutes away from downtown. Plug it into your GPS. It's probably not as far as you think. And even if you're not looking to change your home gym or your daily gym, we have day passes, week passes. We have a 10 pass that never expires. So even if you just want to come out occasionally, look at one of those other options, come check us out, plug it into the GPS. It's probably closer than you think.
Awesome. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for being so hospitable when we came to visit your gym. We really enjoyed the visit, and thanks for coming on, and appreciate it.
Great talking with you.
And you. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.